Among the Hidden, Chapter 17, Part 2. Jen was already leaving the room, so we had to follow just to hear the rest of the sentence. Want something to eat or drink, she asked, hesitating at the doorway to the grand kitchen. I was so surprised. I forgot to be a good hostess last time. What'll it be, soda, potato chips? But those are illegal, Luke protested. He remembered reading something about junk food in one of the books in the attic and asking his mother about it. She explained that it was something people used to eat all the time until the government shut down the factories that made it. She wouldn't tell him why, but as a special treat, she brought out a bag of potatoes she'd been saving for years and shared them just with him. They were salty but hard to chew. Luke had pretended to like them only because Mother seemed to want him to. So our author here is given another flashback, and I think the reason why Luke's remembering it is to show again the big difference or contrast between Jen's life and his life. Yeah, well, we're illegal too, so why shouldn't we enjoy ourselves, Jen asked, thrusting a bowl of potato chips at him. To be polite, Luke took one chip, and then another, and then another. These potato chips were so good he had to hold himself back from grabbing them by the handful. Jen stared at him. Do you go hungry sometimes, she asked in a low voice. No, Luke said in surprise. Some shadow children do because they don't have food ration cards, and the rest of their family doesn't share, she said, opening a refrigerator that was bigger than every appliance in the Garner's kitchen put together. My family can get all the food we want, of course, but... She looked at him in a way that once again made him conscious of his ragged clothes. How does your family get food for you? The question puzzled Luke. The same way they get it for themselves, he said. We grow it. We have a garden. I used to work in it a lot before you know. And then we have the hogs, or used to, and I guess sometimes we'd trade a butchered hog for someone else's butchered steer, so we'd have beef. Those were all shadowy transactions in Luke's mind. He had to strain his brain to remember overhearing Dad or Matthew reporting to Mother, ready to cook some steak? Johnson up near Libertyville wants some ham. Jen dropped a plastic bottle full of brown liquid. You eat meat? She exclaimed. Sure, don't you? Luke asked. When Dad can get it, Jen said, bending to pick up the bottle. She poured a glassful for Luke and one for herself. Both drinks fizzed and bubbled. Even his clout isn't that great. The government's been trying to force everyone, even the barons, to become vegetarians. Why? Luke asked. Jen handed him his glass. Something about vegetables being more efficient, she said. Farmers have to use a lot more land to produce 1 pound of meat than to produce 1 pound of, soybeans? Luke wrinkled his nose at the thought of eating soybeans. I don't know, he said slowly. We always fed our hogs the grain we couldn't sell because it didn't meet government standards. But since the government made us get rid of our hogs, Dad just lets that grain rot in the field. Really? Jen grinned as if he'd just announced the overthrow of the government. She thumped him on the back just as he took his first sip of soda. Between the bubbly drink and her enthusiastic pounding, Luke started coughing. Jen didn't seem to notice. See, I told you you'd be a big help. I'm going to post that on a bulletin board right now. Wait, Luke sputtered between coughs. He didn't know what she was talking about, but he couldn't let her get his family in trouble. He chased her down the hall, catching up just as she was sliding into the chair in front of the computer. She switched it on and made the beep, beep, beep sounds Luke had heard last time. Luke stood to the side, carefully out of sight of the screen. It's not going to bite you, Jen said. Grab a chair, sit down. Luke inched back. But the government, he said. The government's incompetent and stupid, Jen said. Get it? Believe me, if they were watching through my computer screen, I'd know by now. Meekly, Luke pulled over a padded chair and sat down. He watched as Jen typed in, if the government let farmers feed their animals the grain they can't sell, there'd be more meat. Luke was relieved she hadn't mentioned his family, but unless the government was spying on them, he couldn't understand what difference it made for her to write that. Where'd that go? He asked as the words disappeared. Who's going to see it? I put it on the Department of Agriculture bulletin board. Anyone with a computer can find it now. Maybe a government worker with half a brain will see it and actually think for the first time this decade. But Luke squinted in confusion. Why does it matter? Jen fixed her gaze on Luke. You don't even know, do you? She asked. You don't know why they passed the population law. No, Luke admitted. It's all about food, Jen said. The government was scared we'd run out of food if the population kept growing. That's why they made you and me illegal, to keep people from starving. Luke suddenly felt doubly guilty for the potato chips he was still cramming into his mouth. He swallowed hard and lowered his hands to his lap instead of back into the chip bowl. So if I didn't eat, my food would go to someone who was legal, Luke said. But in his family, that would just be Matthew or Mark, and they were hardly starving. Matthew was even starting to sport the same roll of fat around his waist that Dad had. Then Luke remembered the homeless person from long ago saying, "I ain't ate in 3 days." Was that Luke's fault? I think again here, now Luke is again feeling conflicted, and this is kind of adding to his low confidence. Like, should I really even be alive? Would the food that is feeding me go to someone else who is legal? Jen laughed. "Stop looking so worried," she said. "That is what the government thinks, but they're wrong. My dad says there's plenty of food, it's just not distributed right or handed out evenly. That's why they've got to stop the population law. That's why they've got to recognize you and me and all the other shadow kids. That's why we've got to have the rally." As ignorant as he was, Luke could tell from the way she said it that the rally was really important. "Can you tell me about the rally now?" he asked humbly. "Yes," Jen said. She pushed away from the computer and twirled on her chair. "Hundreds of us, all of the shadow children I could track down, are going to march on the government in protest. We'll go right to the president's house. We won't leave them alone until they give us the same rights everyone else has." Just my luck, Luke thought. I finally meet another third child, and she's absolutely crazy. "And," Jen said, as bubbly as the shaken soda, "you can come too. Won't that be great?" So I'm going to leave you there today. I just love Jen. She is so boisterous and loud. She's the exact opposite of Luke. But like we said before, her overconfidence might actually be a pressure, a character versus self, that gets her in trouble. Now, I am going to quickly go over with you the context clues assignment that you're going to do. It's exactly the same as when we worked with the words timid, reckless, rebellious, optimistic, and cautious. You're going to look at the definitions, create a sentence or two with the vocabulary word. I think you've got loyal on there. You've got clever. You've got pessimistic, which is the opposite of optimistic. And you're going to write a sentence with the vocabulary word and some words from the definition, which are your context clues, and then an example so that I know that you also understand the word, not just how to use context clues. So this could be one or more sentences. You could use Luke as an example, your character as an example, or you can just create sentences with your own imagination. So that's what you're going to do for your assignment. It is going to count as a quiz grade because we've practiced this before and revised it. So please take your time and good luck.